She gave up her first-class seat for a pregnant woman. A small gesture of kindness. Right. But what happened next? No one on that flight could have predicted. Why did the flight suddenly go dark for hours without explanation? Why were passengers acting like they had forgotten who they were? And most of all, what secret was this young woman carrying that made the government try to erase her memory? This is not just another story about discrimination. It's about identity, memory, love, and the terrifying cost of truth in a world where even reality can be rewritten. As the plane climbs, so does the tension, and what unfolds at 30,000 feet will shake every assumption you've ever made about choice, control, and conscience. So before we begin, ask yourself this. What would you remember if the world wanted you to forget? If this kind of story moves you, if it makes you think, feel, and question, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Because what you're about to see, it's more than a story. It's a wake-up call. Let's begin. The jet bridge was buzzing with quiet chatter as passengers slowly filed onto Horizon Sky Airlines flight HS 907 bound from New York to San Francisco. It was one of those afternoon flights too late for lunch, too early for dinner, and just long enough to force people into awkward conversations or shared silence. Serena Lowell clutched her worn leather satchel a little tighter as she stepped into the cabin. Row by row, she walked past travelers claiming their seats, some with rehearsed entitlement, others with hushed anxiety. The scent of recycled air, faint cologne, and coffee mixed with something metallic filled the space. Her eyes flicked up to the placard just ahead. Seat 1A, first class, window. Her heart did a small hop. It was a gift from her professor, actually. A thank you for staying behind all semester break to volunteer at the campus health clinic. You've earned a little comfort. Serena, she'd said. And honestly, Serena hadn't argued. After the last few years, after everything with her dad, and her mother's silence, she had learned to accept small kindnesses without question. She paused as she reached her seat. That's when she saw her. A woman, pregnant, clearly near the third trimester, was standing beside the gate agent in a whispered argument. Her face was pale, her back hunched slightly, one hand protectively cradling her belly. The woman's boarding pass was clutched tightly in the other, crumpled at the edges. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the attendant said stiffly. "Economy's at the back. We're at full capacity up here." The woman gave a small, almost defeated nod. She turned, face flushed with shame, and began to make her way toward the back. Her hands shook slightly, and something about the way she moved, not just exhaustion, but fear, tugged at Serena like a forgotten thread from childhood. She glanced back at her own plush first-class seat, and she stood up. "Excuse me," Serena said gently, moving toward the woman. "Would you like to trade seats with me?" The woman blinked. "What, you're pregnant? That walk to the back looks like it could last a lifetime right now. Take mine." The gate agent looked surprised. The woman looked stunned. For a second, Serena thought she'd overstepped. Then the woman whispered, "Are you sure?" Serena smiled. "Completely." There was a pause. Then, without another word, the woman nodded. Her voice cracked as she said, "Thank you." They switched boarding passes. A few first-class passengers raised their brows. The flight attendant, Jared Knox, gave Serena a quick once-over before muttering, "Ma'am, we need to get you seated quickly." "Of course," Serena said, her tone even. She made her way down the long, narrow aisle of economy, row 23, middle seat, between a teenager playing something loud on his phone and a man already asleep with his mouth wide open. Serena slid in, quietly. She didn't regret it, but part of her did wonder, why did she always feel responsible for strangers? And why did this woman feel familiar? She looked up the aisle once more. The pregnant woman, Mira Dean. Serena remembered reading on her pass was already buckled in, eyes closed, clutching something around her neck, a small silver locket. Serena narrowed her eyes. She had seen that locket before. As passengers settled in, the cabin dimmed slightly. Serena leaned back, watching the fluorescent lights flicker overhead. Her seat neighbor grunted in his sleep. The teen next to her chewed gum obnoxiously. Serena closed her eyes, too, but not for rest. For questions. Why did that locket look like her father's? Why did that woman glance around so cautiously, even after she sat down? And why did the man sitting in row 25, a few seats behind Serena, keep watching both of them so closely? The hum of the engines was steady, but Serena couldn't quiet the noise in her own head. She shifted in her economy seat, trying to find a position that didn't make her spine ache or her knees bump the tray table. The man beside her was still snoring, mouth agape. The teenager on the other side was now playing a racing game at full volume, oblivious to the silent mode icon on his screen. But none of that truly bothered her. What lingered was the faint flash of that silver locket. It had glinted as Mira Dean settled into seat 1A, brushing her coat aside. Serena had caught just a glimpse, oval-shaped, dull with age. Her father had worn a matching one. Once. Serena remembered seeing it in an old photo, him, his squad, and that same military crest engraved faintly on the front. She tried to tell herself it was coincidence, except it didn't feel like one. She stared blankly ahead as the plane taxied to the runway. What had she expected when she gave up her seat? Gratitude, maybe a sense of peace, but instead, all she'd received was this uneasy weight pressing into her ribs. Why did that woman look so haunted as the plane lifted into the sky? Serena leaned her head back, eyes half closed. Her mind wandered, as it always did when the world slowed down, to her father, to Marcus Lowell, an Army medic, court-martialed and discharged under what the media called suspicious conduct. Her mother never spoke of it. Her grandfather only ever said, he trusted the wrong people, and he paid the price. But Serena remembered him differently. She remembered his warmth, his calm voice, the way he used to press his palm to her chest when she had nightmares and whisper, "This is your compass, Serena. Always listen to it. He died when she was 11. Car accident, they said. But sometimes," she wondered, a chime echoed through the cabin, breaking her thoughts. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're expecting smooth skies ahead with a bit of turbulence around the Rockies. Should be a beautiful ride. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the flight." Serena looked out the window, sky like silk, clouds in gentle layers, and yet something inside her was already shaking, somewhere near the halfway mark of the flight. She excused herself to stretch and head to the lavatory. She wasn't in a hurry, walking slowly up the aisle, mind racing. As she reached the front galley, she paused. Seat 1A was in her line of sight. Mira Dean sat stiffly, hands pressed to her stomach. Her eyes darted toward the flight attendant each time he passed. Her water sat untouched. Then something strange happened. Mira shifted her coat and her hand moved to her neck again. She opened the locket and stared at something inside it, as if grounding herself. Then she pressed a hand to her mouth. She was crying. Not the kind of sobbing Serena had seen from strangers on subways or in clinic waiting rooms. No. These were silent, buried tears, the kind that came from remembering something too painful to forget. Before Serena could look away, Mira pulled out her phone. She leaned into the corner of the seat, turned her face slightly, and whispered something Serena couldn't hear. But it wasn't in English, and it wasn't normal. The cadence, the low tone, like code, almost like a military call sign. Serena recognized some of the phonetic alphabet: Charlie, Sierra, Llama, 20. Then the phone disappeared. Mira wiped her eyes quickly and slid a folded piece of paper into the seat pocket in front of her. Serena froze. Her instincts screamed. Something was wrong. She turned back down the aisle, heart fluttering. By the time she returned to her seat, she could barely sit still. Her thoughts warred inside her. You're imagining things. Maybe she's just scared. Maybe it's none of your business. But what if it is? What if this isn't random? What if that woman knows something about your dad? She swallowed hard. Her fingers twitched against the edge of her tray table, and finally, without fully understanding why, Serena made a decision. 20 minutes later, when the lights dimmed and half the cabin was asleep, Serena made her move. She stood quietly and walked back up front, feigning a search for her lost sweater. The flight attendant, Jared Knox, wasn't nearby. She hovered beside Mira's seat for a beat. Then, in one swift move, she reached into the pocket. Her hand closed around the folded paper. She slipped it into her coat sleeve and walked calmly back to her seat. Her pulse roared in her ears. Back in row 23, she unfolded it beneath the dim reading light. 2 words leapt out: Vega, testimony, and beneath that, a line of numbers, coordinates. Her hands began to tremble. Adrian Vega was a name she hadn't heard since she was a child. Her father had mentioned him, a close friend, someone he trusted more than anyone in his unit, a man who went missing after the court-martial. The papers said he vanished. Her mother said never to speak his name. Now, he was on a note, tucked into the seat pocket of the woman who took her first-class seat. Serena looked up, and that's when she noticed the man in row 25 staring directly at her. The man in row 25 hadn't blinked in what felt like a minute. Serena Lowell instinctively folded the note in her lap, slipping it back into her coat sleeve as if it burned her skin. Her heartbeat pounded like a drumline inside her chest. Stay calm. Don't look away too quickly. That's how they know. So instead, she stared right back. He had the look of someone trained not to flinch: square shoulders, neutral expression, expensive watch. But it was the way his fingers tapped his armrest in a rhythmic, deliberate pattern that unsettled her. Tap, pause, tap, tap, pause. A code. Serena turned her head slowly toward the window. Her reflection stared back in the darkened glass. What exactly did I just step into? And more importantly, why does it feel like it was waiting for me? 15 minutes passed. Then 20. The cabin was now in full cruise mode, window shades pulled down, overhead lights dimmed, most passengers drifting off or mindlessly scrolling, the usual lull, except Serena was wide awake. So was the man in row 25. And so, apparently, was Mira Dean. Serena spotted her subtly looking around, tense. Her hand drifted to the locket again. That locket was more than jewelry, it was a talisman, A trigger, maybe even a signal. Serena needed answers. But asking Mira directly wasn't possible. Not with that man watching. She could feel it, every move being tracked. So she took a risk. She stood, walked casually toward the galley again, then turned into the restroom. She locked the door, heart racing, and pulled the note back out. She ran her finger across the words again. Vega, testimony, 37 182 de Gran, 115 270 de Graba. The second line below read, red file. If I don't make it, tell her he never betrayed them. Serena stared at it, breath shallow. Did that mean her mother? Or was this not even meant for her? Had Mira mistaken her for someone else, and he never betrayed them? Did that mean her father? Was this the truth he had died protecting? The door handle jiggled suddenly. Serena jumped. Occupied, she called, a bit too loudly. Silence, then a knock, 2 firm taps, then one softer. That same rhythm. Tap, pause, tap, tap. Her breath caught. She pressed her back to the wall. Was it him? The man from row 25, or worse, was it Jared, the flight attendant? She stayed silent. Whoever it was eventually left. She counted to 60, then opened the door. No one stood in the galley, but tucked behind the waste bin was a small, crumpled napkin. Serena picked it up, puzzled. Inside, in neat, tiny handwriting. It read, Seat 1A is not who she says she is. Serena sat back down in her seat, fingers tight around the napkin. This flight had gone from quiet to covert operation in under 2 hours, and she was in the middle of it. She had questions now, dozens, but no safe place to ask them. Her neighbors were still glued to their own worlds, the cabin calm as ever. Nothing looked out of place, but something was very wrong. She scanned the cabin. Mira was gone. Seat 1A was empty. Serena stood, pretending to stretch, and peeked toward the lavatory. No sign of her. She tried to shake the worry, but it wouldn't budge. A strange static began to hum in the back of her skull, an instinct she'd learned in clinics when things felt off before they actually went off. She listened to it now. She walked again toward the front. "Excuse me," she said quietly to the flight attendant, Jared Knox, who stood reading the in-flight menu like it was Shakespeare. He looked up, smiled tight. "Can I help you? I think the woman who was in 1A might need assistance. She looked dizzy earlier." He frowned. "She's fine, just resting. Please return to your seat." "But she's not in her seat." Jared's eyes narrowed. "Ma'am, I just checked. She's there. I just looked," I said. "She's fine." The emphasis made Serena step back. He wasn't just irritated. He was protecting something. Or someone. She nodded, muttered an apology, and turned to go. And that's when she heard it. From behind the curtain separating first class from the galley, a whisper, very soft. Female voice. "I don't know how long I can hold it. They're watching." Serena froze. She recognized Mira's voice. She was hiding, not resting. Someone was watching her, and Serena had just made herself visible, back in her seat. Serena opened her journal and pretended to write. Instead, she scribbled down everything she'd seen and heard. She didn't have all the pieces, but she had enough to know the truth wasn't far. Whatever Mira was carrying, it was dangerous, and whoever wanted to stop her wasn't waiting until landing. That meant time was running out. Serena turned slightly in her seat. The man in row 25 gone. His seat was empty. Serena Lowell's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her journal. Pen frozen mid-word. The seat behind her, row 25, was empty now. That man, the one with the coated finger taps and the military posture, had vanished. On a sealed flight, mid-air. She looked around quickly. The lights were still dimmed. Soft jazz filtered through the speakers. A man across the aisle was snoring gently. The teenager beside her was asleep now, phone slipping from his hand. Everyone was blissfully unaware. Serena's stomach twisted. Where the hell did he go? She opened the tray table, needing something, anything to ground her thoughts. That's when she saw it. Another note, tucked under the tray latch, small, folded, precisely placed. She glanced around, heart hammering, then unfolded it. You're in the wrong seat, but the right story. Stay low. Don't trust anyone, not even the crew. We see you. Her throat went dry. Who was we? And how had they slipped this into her tray without her noticing? She folded the note slowly and slipped it into her sock, this time beneath the tongue of her sneaker. You're in the wrong seat. What did that mean? Was she the target, or had she just stepped into a role someone else abandoned? Maybe she was sitting where Amira was supposed to be now. Maybe it was on purpose. 30 minutes later, a soft chime echoed through the cabin. Serena watched as Jared Knox whispered something to another attendant, an unfamiliar brunette with sharp features and a forced smile. They both glanced toward the cockpit, then toward Serena. Her breath caught. Then Jared moved. He casually walked down the aisle, slow, unbothered, stopping 2 rows ahead of her. "Excuse me, miss," he said to a passenger. "Would you mind trading seats for a moment? We need to take care of something in back." The woman hesitated, but his tone left little room for objection. She stood, moved. Jared nodded toward Serena. "You too. Please, just briefly." Serena blinked. Why flight operations? That didn't even make sense. Serena glanced around. No other passengers seemed to care. The few who were awake kept their earbuds in, unconcerned. The ones asleep hadn't stirred. This is how they do it, she thought. Quiet, unnoticed. "I'd prefer not to move," she said, voice calm. Jared's smile tightened. "I wasn't asking." Just then, a voice called from the front. "Excuse me." "Jared," said a new figure, a tall man in uniform Serena hadn't seen board. "Can I borrow your help with the manifest? Something isn't matching up." Jared turned, visibly annoyed. "Just a moment," he said, forcing civility. The man nodded, expression unreadable. Serena's eyes met his, and in that split second he winked. Not flirtatious, covert. A signal. Back at her seat, Serena tried to piece the puzzle together. There were too many players now. Mira was in hiding. Jared and maybe more crew were involved. The man from row 25 had vanished. Someone else, this new uniformed man, might be on her side, or might be playing a deeper game. She thought again of the coordinates in the first note, 37.182 degree hour, 115.870 degree hour, area 51. Her father had once pointed to a similar spot on an old military map during a rare storytime moment when she was 10. Secrets aren't the danger, he'd said. It's who thinks they own the truth. Back then, she thought he was being dramatic. Now, she wasn't so sure. The plane suddenly jolted. A short, sharp turbulence shake enough to rattle the drink carts. A voice from the cockpit crackled overhead. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a pocket of unexpected turbulence. Please remain seated and buckled for the next 20 minutes. But Serena noticed something odd. Jared, now back at the front, wasn't fazed. In fact, he nodded at the turbulence, like he'd expected it, like it was planned. Then came the moment that cemented Serena's fear. A curtain shifted in the galley, and Mira appeared, stumbling, pale, breathing hard. "Help," she whispered, eyes glassy. "Something's wrong." Before anyone could react, she collapsed, right in the aisle. A collective gasp rose from several rows. Serena leapt up. She needs water and space. She dropped to her knees beside Mira as Jared rushed forward. But Serena raised a hand. "Don't." He stopped, hesitated. Mira's hand clutched Serena's sleeve. She pulled her close, lips barely moving. "They poisoned me." Serena froze. What, not food, air, mask, behind the curtain. Then her eyes rolled back. The cabin erupted into controlled chaos. Flight attendants appeared with masks, med kits, forced smiles. Passengers were told everything is under control. Someone claimed Mira had a fainting spell due to pregnancy stress. Serena knew better. She saw the fear in Mira's eyes. She saw Jared remove something from his pocket and quietly drop it into a waste bin before returning to his neutral stance. She saw the fake kindness, the cover. This wasn't turbulence, this was a test, and Serena had just passed it, or failed it depending on who was keeping score. The aisle was still. Mira Dean lay unconscious on the floor. Her face was pale gray, almost. Yet her last whisper echoed in Serena Lowell's mind like a drumbeat in a cave. "They poisoned me. Not food, air, mask, behind the curtain." Serena crouched beside her as the flight attendants moved in. "We've got it from here, miss," said Jared Knox, forcing a calming smile as he knelt down with a medical kit. But Serena didn't move. "Her pulse is weak," she said flatly. "She needs oxygen. We have everything we need." "Do you?" Serena's voice was calm, measured. She said something about the masks. Jared's expression twitched, just for a moment. Then he smiled again, thinner this time. People say a lot when they're panicking, but Serena had already seen what she needed. Behind the thin galley curtain, something metallic glinted. A hatch panel hung slightly ajar, one no passenger should have noticed. And behind it, a mask, old military grade, hooked to tubing, not airline issue. Why would Mira have seen that unless she'd been back there? Unless someone let her back there? Mira was lifted onto a stretcher cart and wheeled into the crew quarters near the cockpit for privacy. They said. Serena wasn't fooled. She returned to her seat slowly, the folded note still pressed against her ankle. "They're watching me now." She stared out the window for a while, letting the clouds blur into abstraction. But her thoughts were sharp. If the mask was hidden, if she was poisoned, and if I'm in the right story, then who else knows what's really happening on this plane? She replayed the man's words in her head. "We see you when the plane hits smoother air." Serena made her move. "Bathroom," she told the flight attendant with a polite nod. No one stopped her, but she didn't go to the lavatory. She veered right into the galley and slid past the curtain as quietly as a breath. The metal panel was still slightly ajar. She opened it fully and peered inside. The mask was gone, replaced by nothing. No tubing, no trace. Like it had never been there, except a torn strap, caught in the corner of the panel, frayed military canvas. She pulled it free and tucked it inside her hoodie pocket. Then she heard a voice. I wouldn't stay in there too long. She turned. It was the uniformed man from earlier. the one who'd interrupted Jared. He was leaning casually near the curtain, as if waiting for coffee, but his eyes were alert, controlled, like a man reading wind patterns in the middle of a storm. "Didn't catch your name," he said. "I didn't offer it." He chuckled softly. "You're sharp, and you're vague." He glanced past her, then lowered his voice. "Serena Lowell, 22, NYU pre-med, volunteer at Holloway Community Clinic, daughter of Corporal Jonathan Lowell, formerly of the 44th Intelligence Unit, presumed MIA since 2012. Serena froze. The man's tone softened. "You're not here by accident." "Then why am I here?" she whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, he handed her a folded piece of paper. Coordinates. Again. A new set this time. 37.2431 degree Ni. 115.7930 degree W. A slight variation, but still Nevada. Still Area 51. "What's there?" she asked. He nodded toward the front of the plane. "Something she's carrying." He didn't say Mira's name, but Serena knew. "Who are you?" she asked. He hesitated. Then, quietly, "Someone who still believes truth is worth fighting for." Before she could ask more, he was gone, just like the man in row 25. Back at her seat, Serena's thoughts unraveled like threads from a frayed sleeve. Her father, Area 51, a poisoned woman, a military-grade mask, a vanished man, a crew member who knew her name, and a feeling deep in her gut that none of this was coincidence. They wanted Mira on this flight, and now they think I know too much. She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out the torn mask strap, stared at it, then tucked it back away, and finally, she made a decision. She wasn't just going to survive this flight. She was going to finish what her father started. Serena Lowell sat still, breathing through her nose, eyes fixed on the fastened seatbelt sign overhead. From the outside, she looked calm, maybe tired, maybe a little pale, but inside, her thoughts buzzed like hornets. She didn't trust anyone anymore, not the smiling flight attendants, not the new ones who kept appearing from the crew cabin like actors rotating through scenes, not even the pilot's voice, which now came over the intercom in oddly generic tones, like a script read through static. But something strange was happening. The passengers were growing restless, not panicked yet, but suspicious. 2 rows ahead, a young man with thick glasses had begun arguing with a flight attendant over a missing backpack. In the back, an older woman asked why the Wi-Fi had gone down again. Even the baby in row 30, who had been eerily quiet the whole flight, now cried with persistent unease. It was as if the plane itself was shifting. Mood, atmosphere, pressure. Like a story turning just before its twist, Serena's fingers tapped her journal without writing. She stared at the tray table again, wondering if there'd be another note, another clue, but there was only her reflection in the aluminum surface, muted, uncertain. Then a sound, a low, consistent click just under her seat. She bent slowly, heart thudding, and pulled her carry-on forward. Nothing seemed out of place, until she noticed the headphone jack. Her seat's audio port had a small adapter already plugged in, but she hadn't put it there. She plugged in her earbuds and instantly heard "The wind is not the enemy. The silence is." A voice, not the flight audio, not music, not static. It was a whisper. Female. Recorded, then another voice. Male this time. Track 47 compromised. Second channel is live. Extraction pending. Secondary asset on board. Serena's pulse jumped. Was she the secondary asset, or Mira, or someone else entirely? Suddenly, the overhead lights flickered. 3 short flashes, then back to normal. Only a few passengers seemed to notice, but Serena's gut told her it wasn't turbulence. It was a signal. She looked around the cabin and locked eyes with a girl across the aisle, maybe 15, maybe 16, thin braids, wide eyes, a sketch pad balanced on her knees. She held Serena's gaze, then, quietly, flipped her sketch pad, drawn on the page a black oxygen mask, and beneath it, a number 217. Serena blinked. The girl gave a single nod, then casually flipped the page back and kept drawing. Row 21, seat 7. That's a few rows behind me. Serena slipped from her seat again. She passed rows of people deep in books, sleep, or distraction. At row 21, seat 7, she paused. A man sat there, mid-40s, gray at the temples, plain sweatshirt. He seemed to be asleep, but his hands were twitching, tapping out something on the tray table. Morse code. She couldn't be sure. She leaned down. "Excuse me," she whispered. The man opened one eye, then the other. "You're early," he said. Serena frowned. "What?" He sat up straighter. "We thought they'd take you to the front by now." "Why? Because you're not just a witness anymore." His voice was even, controlled. "You're a variable." He reached under the seat and handed her a folded paper. It was a copy of her father's discharge report. But at the bottom, a single sentence had been added in red ink: operative terminated during internal sweep. Body unrecovered. Her heart twisted. "No," she whispered. "He's not dead." The man looked at her. "He didn't die," he said gently. "He disappeared because he saw something he wasn't meant to see." Then, quietly, "And he left you a trail." Serena returned to her seat, fingers cold and stiff. She stared at the report. Unrecovered, disappeared. She thought of all the times she had imagined her father alive somewhere: mountains, bunkers, forests. She thought she was being naive. But maybe he had gone underground for a reason. And maybe this flight, this storm of secrets, was her chance to understand why. She looked down the aisle again, toward the crew quarters. Mira was in there, barely alive, and whatever she was carrying, it wasn't just about military secrets or coordinates. It was about erasure, silence, and now it was about truth. Serena stood. Again. She walked toward the curtain, her steps quiet but determined, and just before she pushed it aside, a hand reached out and stopped her. It was Jared Knox, smile gone, eyes hard. "You need to sit down. I need to see her," Serena said calmly. "She's not awake. She was never unconscious." Jared leaned in close. "This isn't your war, Ms. Lowell. Then maybe stop waging it in my sky," she replied. His nostrils flared, but she didn't flinch. Then another voice joined them. "We've got a problem." It was the brunette attendant from earlier. "Someone's trying to access the cockpit comms." Jared's face paled slightly. Then his eyes flicked back to Serena. And for the first time he looked afraid. "She's waking up." That was the first thing Serena heard when she slipped past the curtain again, this time without resistance. The brunette flight attendant had been called away. Jared Knox was nowhere in sight. Inside the crew quarters, Mira Dean stirred on a reclined stretcher, her face still pale, but her eyelids twitching. Serena knelt beside her. "Mira," she said softly. "It's me, Serena. You're safe. For now." Mira's eyes fluttered open. "I thought I was gone," she whispered. Her voice cracked like dry leaves. "You almost were." Mira blinked slowly, Then, hoarsely, "Did you see it? The mask, the static." The man in uniform. Mira closed her eyes and nodded. Then, shakily, she raised her trembling fingers to Serena's wrist and whispered, "They called it the disappearance protocol." Serena's throat tightened. What is that Mira's lips were dry, her breathing shallow? It started 2 years ago. Project Mirage, a military-patented airborne suppressant, no scent, no trace, designed to render threats invisible. "You mean kill them?" Mira shook her head. "No, not quite. It's worse. They erase you, from systems, from memory, from history." She looked into Serena's eyes. "You don't die. You disappear." Serena felt her stomach twist, and they're testing it here. On a commercial plane, Mira nodded. Flight HS-907 was the final simulation. One last live test on civilians. See how much they could hide in plain sight. What people notice, what they forget. Serena clenched her jaw. "Why were you on board?" Mira let out a shaky breath. "Because I stole the formula and a list of names, targets. Your father's name was on it. So was mine." Serena stood and backed away, heart thundering in her chest. This wasn't just a random experiment. It was a purge. And her father. He hadn't vanished by chance. He'd been erased, made invisible by his own government. Serena turned and paced the small space. Her thoughts ran in jagged loops colliding, sparking. "You said you had the list." Mira nodded weakly. "In my coat pocket, blue folder." Serena grabbed the coat hanging by the bulkhead. Inside the lining, she found it. A sealed folder with a Horizon Sky logo, labeled simply "Confidential OP Mirage V6 Authorized Eyes Only." She opened it. Pages and pages of redacted names. Except one line stood untouched: Jonathan Lowell. Status nullified. Below that subject's daughter, Serena Lowell, flagged for latent variable behavior. Monitor closely. The plane jolted hard. Serena dropped the folder. A murmur rose from the cabin. People startled, nervous, not quite panic, just pressure, building. She picked up the folder and turned to Mira. "Why haven't they stopped me yet?" "They're deciding if they can still use you," Mira said quietly. "You're a daughter of the missing, a potential sympathizer, but also a liability." Serena's chest tightened. "I'm not on either side," she whispered. "That's why you're dangerous." A chime sounded overhead. Then a voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're currently experiencing slight turbulence. Please return to your seats." But Serena heard something else in the voice. Something synthetic, stripped of tone, not the same pilot from before. And when she peeked through the curtain into the main cabin, she saw it. 3 passengers were gone, just missing. Seatbelts still fastened, jackets left behind, but no one in the seats. She scanned around. No one even looked alarmed. In fact, most people didn't seem to remember them at all, as if their absence had been scripted. Her hands trembled. "The protocol is active." Serena turned to Mira, whispering fiercely. "We have to stop it." "You'll need access to the communications hub," Mira said. "It's in the lower crew bay, beneath the galley. That's where the signal's coming from." "What signal?" "The masking frequency. It's how they erase witnesses, memories. It pulses through infrasound. You won't feel it at first, but I'm starting to forget things," Serena whispered. "Little things. That's how it begins." Serena turned to go, but Mira grabbed her hand. "There's something else," she said. "In the back. Row 30. There's a woman with a baby. Her name is Yvette. She's one of them too on our side. She smuggled out audio evidence on a flash drive. She doesn't even know what she has." "I'll get her," Serena said. "Then I'm heading down." "Be careful," Mira said. "Once they know what you're doing, they'll turn everyone against you." As Serena slipped into the aisle again, the lights flickered a second time. 3 flashes. Then darkness for half a second. Then light again. No one screamed. No one asked questions. Only Serena noticed that now 4 more seats were empty. Serena Lowell moved swiftly through the aisle, heart pounding louder than the engine's hum. The cabin still looked serene, almost eerily so, but Serena knew better now. 8 people were gone, and no one remembered them. Her hand grazed the edge of each row as she passed. She kept her gaze level, casual. Inside, though, she felt like a pressure cooker about to blow. Row 30. Woman with a baby. Yvette. She found them near the back, cramped against the window seat. The woman looked young, early 30s maybe. Hair braided neatly, a soft gray sweater draped over her shoulder as she rocked the tiny infant in her arms. The baby had on oversized earmuffs, noise-canceling. Serena realized. "Smart." "Yvette," Serena whispered. The woman flinched, eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Do I know you?" "No, but Mira sent me. You have something. A flash drive." Yvette's eyes sharpened at that name. Still rocking the baby, she motioned Serena to sit beside her. The middle seat was empty. Yvette leaned in. "I thought they forgot about me. They haven't, but they will soon." Yvette reached into the lining of her diaper bag. Out came a pacifier. She twisted the plastic nipple once click. A hidden compartment slid open. Inside a slim silver USB drive with a cracked end. Serena took it with trembling hands. "What's on it?" she asked. "I don't know. A man gave it to me before he died at the airport. He said, 'Make sure this gets to someone who still believes in what's real.'" Someone who still believes in what's real. Serena tucked it into her hoodie's inside seam pocket. "I'll keep it safe." Yvette looked at her solemnly. "You better, because I think we're next," as if on cue. The lights dimmed again, not off, just duller, like a filter had been dragged over reality. A baby began to cry several rows ahead. The crying echoed strangely, as if underwater. Then the intercom crackled. A new voice so smooth it was robotic said, "Passenger disturbance in row 30. Crew, please intervene." Yvette stiffened. "They tagged us. We need to move. Now." Serena helped lift the baby carrier while Yvette grabbed the diaper bag. They ducked beneath the overhead bins as if they were shadows instead of people. They didn't run. They moved like ghosts. Stay quiet, stay invisible, stay one step ahead, back behind the galley curtain. Serena reached the floor hatch Mira had mentioned. She yanked it open, revealing a narrow maintenance ladder descending into darkness. "Go," Serena told Yvette. "With the baby, they won't follow you down there." Yvette hesitated. "What about you? I'm going back. Someone has to flip the signal." Yvette looked at her like she wanted to argue but didn't. Instead, she kissed Serena's forehead, then disappeared down the ladder, baby against her chest. Serena closed the hatch behind them and turned. Jared Knox stood there. His smile was gone. "Should have known it was you. I didn't take anything." She lied. "Oh, but you did," he said quietly. "You took the one thing we couldn't predict, a choice." Behind him, 2 more crew members appeared, one of them the brunette with the clipboard, the other a tall man in a pressed uniform. No pilot wings, just a flat silver pin, Omega Null. Serena glanced sideways, searching for options. Nowhere to run. Jared took a step closer. You think this story is about heroes and villains? I think it's about people, she replied, and you stopped seeing them that way. Suddenly, a sharp buzz filled the cabin. Everyone, including the crew, paused. Then, from the overhead speakers, a garbled voice cut in, confirmed breach in subdeck channel 2, masking pulse disrupted. Serena's eyes widened. Yvette must have reached the comms panel, and now the frequency was exposed. Passengers were looking up, frowning. Some blinked rapidly as if waking from a dream. In row 10, a man turned to his wife and said, "Wait, wasn't someone sitting next to us earlier?" In row 22, a child asked, "Where's the lady with the braid?" It was starting. The forgetting was unraveling. Reality, once scripted, now stuttered like a skipped record. Jared reached for Serena. She ducked and sprinted back down the aisle, bumping into shoulders, dodging arms, barely holding on to the flash drive in her hoodie. She didn't stop until she reached Mira, still weak but awake. Serena dropped to her knees. "It's happening. We have to end this. Now." Mira nodded slowly. "Give me the drive." Serena handed it to her. With a shaking thumb, Mira pulled a second hidden USB port from inside her medical pack and jammed it in. The screen on her lap blinked, and the plane changed. The lights stopped flickering. The cabin noise softened. A soft chime rang out. Then a new voice female. Warm. Human filled the air restoration sequence initiated. Project Mirage compromised. Ethical override engaged. The sound that came next wasn't mechanical. It was human. Voices, rising, calling out names. "Wait, where's Daniel?" "He was right here. My daughter was in the seat next to me. I swear she was just Mom." "Mom, are you okay?" You were shaken. Passengers stirred like dreamers yanked from sleep. Eyes darted, brows furrowed, then panic, recognition, clarity. The fog had lifted, and Serena Lowell was in the middle of it, blinking through the emotional haze. Next to her, Mira Dean gripped the small, glowing screen in her lap, her thumb pressing a pulsing icon that read, "Override active." "Keep them talking," Mira whispered. "If they remember each other, the system can't reassert itself." Serena turned to the cabin. "Talk to the person next to you," she shouted over the growing chaos. "Tell them what you remember. Say their name out loud." It felt strange commanding strangers, but it worked. A ripple of voices surged through the plane. "I'm Taylor. You're Kelsey. We met in the boarding line, remember? Your name's Amir. You helped me with my bag. You have a son. His name is Mason. You showed me his picture. Names, connections, memories, spoken aloud, became anchors. And the system, the thing they had all unknowingly been living in, began to break. But not everyone welcomed the awakening. Jared Knox appeared again, his composure gone, hair disheveled, tie askew. He moved like a man with nothing left to lose. "You don't know what you're undoing," he yelled. Serena stepped between him and Mira. "Then, tell us." Jared's eyes flicked toward the screen on Mira's lap. Then, something inside him cracked. "We weren't erasing people," he said, breath heaving. "We were running simulations." Simulations, Serena asked. Of trauma, he choked, of grief, conflict, fear, to build emotional immunity. That's what Project Mirage was. Serena felt her stomach twist. "You mean This flight. He nodded. None of you were chosen by chance. Every seat was carefully selected based on triggers, relationships, histories. We built a web of pain to test thresholds, and when someone couldn't take it anymore, they were removed, not killed, not harmed, he said defensively, just extracted, recycled into new data loops. You erased their existence. Serena's voice was low but seething. Jared faltered. It wasn't real. It's real to us. At that moment, the plane jolted. A sharp descent. Lights flickered once more, but this time, not from interference. A voice came over the intercom. Not robotic. Real. Captain Morell Thorne. This is your pilot speaking. I've just regained full control of the aircraft. We appear to have suffered a widespread technical breach. Please remain calm as we prepare for descent. He's awake, Serena thought. Even the pilot was under it. In row 18, a woman broke into sobs. My sister, she disappeared hours ago. I thought I imagined her. She didn't vanish, Serena said as she passed by. They just made you forget her. She reached the rear of the plane, where Yvette had resurfaced, clutching her baby tightly. They're trying to force a reset. Yvette gasped. You've got 10 minutes at most. Mira called out from her seat. Serena opened the drive. Show them. The passengers. The world. Serena grabbed the auxiliary tablet Mira had wired into the system. With trembling fingers, she navigated through the encrypted folders. What she found made her knees weak. Video logs, audio files, passenger dossiers, psychological reports. One file, Lowell, Serena, scenario, model 92B her own life, analyzed, parsed, turned into data. She tapped the video log, the screen filled with footage of her father, her childhood home, private conversations, hospital visits, her father saluting goodbye before his final mission, and then him being captured, interrogated, injected, then black. Her voice shook. He's alive. Mira looked up, or he was, until they extracted his mind. The cabin watched as Serena projected the data onto the bulkhead screen. Footage flickered in sync with the rattling descent. Passenger faces half remembered. Laughter, then silence. Gaps in time. It was all there. The erased lives, the experiments, the intent. Mira coughed, her voice thin. Project Mirage wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. Serena nodded. And now everyone on this plane knows it. A long pause. Then Jared's voice small, almost mournful. I joined to stop wars. To protect people. Not to do this. Serena didn't respond. She didn't need to. Some truths sat heavier than judgment. The plane's engines hummed steadily now, but it was no longer comforting. It felt like the low growl of truth coming to land. Serena Lowell stood at the front of the cabin, her fingers white-knuckled around the back of seat 1A. Behind her, the projector still glowed with the final footage of her father, proud, loyal, disappearing without trace, not dead, just reprogrammed, like the rest of them. The cabin had gone quiet after the revelations. No more shouting, no more crying, just stunned silence, except for the occasional whisper as passengers tried to piece together missing memories. Was she my wife, my son? He was on this flight. He had a yellow hat. Why do I remember screaming? But no sound. In the jump seat near the cockpit, Jared Knox sat with his face in his hands, no longer fighting. His voice came out like gravel. You don't understand the depth of it. Serena turned. Then help us understand. Jared looked up, bloodshot eyes locking on hers. We didn't just erase moments, Serena, we rewrote them. Each person on board was selected because of their resilience, their emotional thresholds. What you think were coincidences, lost bags, gate changes, delayed flights, they were all engineered. You turned our pain into a training module. Jared nodded. Your grief, your kindness, even your ability to rebel, we mapped it all. Your father was the first. Serena's jaw clenched. You said you didn't kill him. We didn't, Jared said, but we hollowed him. His mind, his emotional algorithms were the framework for the command AI that runs Mirage. Serena staggered back, like she'd taken a blow to the chest. He's the system. The intercom crackled. Captain Morell Thorne's voice was tight. We're entering final descent. All passengers, return to your seats. But Serena couldn't move. Then, if I shut it down, he's gone. Mira Dean, still pale but stable, looked up from the portable panel she clutched. If we finalize the override, the Mirage AI collapses, the suppression ends, the recordings are exposed, and yes, your father's data, everything built on him, it dissolves. Serena's legs buckled, and she sank into the nearest seat. I've fought to find him for 8 years, she whispered. He was the reason I joined Civil Response, the reason I became anything. Yvette, standing a row behind with her baby, said softly, but would he want to keep existing like this? Serena didn't answer. Her mind spiraled through fragments, her father laughing on their front porch, his strong voice reading her bedtime stories, his boots at the door, his salute before deployment, his sudden disappearance, her mother's silence afterward. Now she knew why. He had been recruited, not to serve, but to become the machine. You can still stop, Jared murmured. If you cancel the override, the system resets. No one remembers. Your father remains, in a way. Serena shook her head. That's not a life. That's a leash. Mira looked up. The final key is biometric. Your voice, Serena. Serena took the mic from the back of the captain's console. Her thumb hovered above the confirm icon. She closed her eyes. Dad, she thought, I don't know if any part of you can hear me, but if you can, I'm sorry. They tried to make you into a machine, but I remember you, the real you. That's enough. And now it ends. She pressed the button and spoke clearly. Confirm override. Shut down Project Mirage. Authorization Serena Lowell, daughter of Captain Elias Lowell. The screen blinked. Voice match. Confirmed termination sequence engaged. The lights surged once, then went dark. The aircraft's internal system shut down for 3 seconds, an eternity in the sky, then rebooted. The hum returned. The air felt lighter. The memory suppression gone. The overriding gone. The Mirage was no more. Captain Thorne's voice returned, now entirely his own. We are cleared for landing. Welcome to reality. Applause didn't erupt. No one cheered. There was only quiet and tears. People turned to those they'd forgotten, reached for hands they hadn't realized they were holding, and whispered names that had been buried in fog. Mira touched Serena's arm. You did it. Serena nodded numbly, but her heart felt hollow. A victory won with a loss no one else could see. Jared stood slowly, eyes glazed. You know this doesn't end here. There are other flights, other programs. Serena met his gaze. Then we'll find them. He tilted his head. Who's we? From across the aisle. Yvette stepped forward. Count me in. A college student with noise-canceling headphones raised his hand. Same, a mother, a businesswoman, a retiree, passenger after passenger, one by one, they stood, not as victims, but as witnesses. The wheels touched the tarmac with a jolt. Not violent, not smooth, just real. For the first time in hours, or perhaps years, in the minds of some flight HS-907 was no longer suspended in the air or in a synthetic memory loop. It was grounded. And so were its passengers. Serena Lowell stayed seated as the brakes hissed and the cabin leaned forward gently. Around her, people exhaled slowly. Not relief, not yet. Just the cautious breath of people learning how to trust the air again. Outside the window, the early morning fog of Redwood Air Command curled across the runway like ghosts unsure of their purpose. Military trucks lined the far edge of the tarmac. Plain black sedans idled behind them, headlights glowing, unmoving. "Do you think they know?" Mira asked from across the aisle, her voice barely above a whisper. "They knew before we took off," Serena replied. The seatbelt sign blinked off, but no one moved. There were no announcements, no flight attendants ushering them to stand. In a surreal silence, the passengers remained still. Captain Morrell Thorne emerged from the cockpit, his posture firm again, face drawn but clear-eyed. "I've been flying 27 years, he said into the cabin. "I've never landed a flight like this." No one spoke. He nodded at Serena. "The doors are still locked from the outside. We're waiting on clearance." Clearance from who someone called out from the back. Captain Thorne didn't answer, because he didn't know. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Finally, the main door clicked, air hissed, light poured in, and in stepped a woman Serena hadn't seen in years. Commander Elaine Brooks, dressed in slate-gray agency uniform, flanked by 2 agents in dark blue tactical wear. "Elaine," Serena breathed. The woman's face didn't change. "Ms. Lowell, Captain Thorne, Mira Dean." Her gaze swept the cabin. "Passengers of HS-907, welcome back." No one moved. No one clapped. "Is this real?" someone finally asked. Elaine nodded once. "It's over. Mirage is down. All passenger data logs have been suspended. You're free to deplane." Serena stood. What about the rest of the network? Elaine didn't flinch. "That's classified. Not anymore." "You don't want to make this hard." "Serena." "I didn't make it hard," Serena said, stepping forward. "You did. When you turn people into simulations and grief into an algorithm." A flicker of emotion touched Elaine's eyes. "I didn't want this. I recruited your father for tactical planning, not mine integration." Serena's voice dropped. "You let him disappear." Elaine's voice cracked just slightly. "I mourned him, too." Passengers began to rise quietly, hesitantly. One woman in business heels carried a sleeping child. A teenage boy held his grandfather's arm. They walked past Elaine's agents like ghosts reclaiming their right to exist. One by one, some stopped to nod at Serena. Others just looked at her, eyes heavy with a gratitude too deep for words. Yvette brushed past, her baby cooing softly in her arms. "I'm heading to the press. They'll listen to a mother." Serena nodded. "Use your name, all of it." As Serena stepped onto the jet bridge, Elaine followed beside her. "You're going to blow this up," Elaine said. "I'm going to tell the truth. It won't be easy." Serena paused at the threshold. "My father didn't choose silence. Neither will I." She stepped into the daylight. Outside, Mira waited with a duffel over her shoulder and a flash drive in her hand. Copies of everything, she said. We'll scatter them across every independent outlet that'll listen. And when the government denies it, Mira looked around. They'll be outnumbered. Behind them, more passengers stepped onto the pavement. Journalists already surrounded the outer perimeter, shouting, pointing microphones, pressing record. One voice shouted, "Ms. Lowell, why did your flight lose all contact for 11 hours?" Serena turned toward the crowd, and for a moment she hesitated. Not from fear, from understanding. Once this truth left her mouth, there was no going back, no forgetting, no mirage to undo it all. She raised her voice. "We didn't disappear. We were stolen, tested, rewritten, and now we remember. Click, flash, record. The story was loose. The world would soon know." Back on the plane, Jared Knox sat alone in row 14, hands resting in his lap. He hadn't moved. Captain Thorne stood beside him. "You comin'?" Jared didn't look up. "I think I'll stay here a little longer." Thorne nodded. "You can't sit in a burning house forever." Jared's laugh was hollow. "Watch me." 1 week later, the footage had gone viral. Clips of Serena Lowell standing at the foot of the jet bridge saying, "We were stolen, tested, rewritten," had been replayed on every network. Hashtags surged. News anchors stumbled over words like cognitive override, memory mapping, and emotional AI cloning. But Serena didn't watch the broadcasts. She was busy tracking every name from Flight HS-907. Every person who'd been aboard. Every life they'd tried to erase. She sat in a small cafe in Palo Vista, fingers wrapped around a mug of coffee that had long since gone cold. Across from her, Mira Dean scrolled through a secure tablet. 34 passengers have come forward to speak publicly, Mira said. The 11 have already filed legal complaints. 2 senators are demanding a hearing, and the rest, Serena asked. Some are afraid. Some just want to forget again. Serena understood. Some memories weren't worth retrieving, but others were sacred, and hers had become her mission. She opened a thin manila folder, the original passenger manifest. Not the sanitized one Mirage had released, the real list, the one Mira decrypted from the black box Jared had tried to destroy. Names she didn't recognize, some redacted, a few labeled deceased, though no bodies had been returned, and at the top of the second page, Captain Elias Lowell, status, decommissioned Corps host, last interaction flight MZ-401, classified. She closed the folder slowly, the ache behind her ribs sharp and pulsing. "I shut him down," she whispered, "that part of him, but I still don't know how much was real and how much they made." Mira looked up. "You saw the recordings. That was him. Serena. The real him. Whatever they built on top of it doesn't change what he gave you before they took him." Outside the cafe, camera crews were still parked, waiting for a quote, a confession, a breakdown. Instead, Serena stepped into the sunlight with Mira at her side and walked right past them. They drove in silence to the airfield where it all began. Redwood Air Command was still under lockdown, but Serena had clearance now, and not just because she had been on that flight, because the world was listening now. She walked back through the hangar, past grounded aircraft that might still carry the scars of Mirage, and finally stopped in front of the wreckage of Flight MZ-401, the last flight her father had ever piloted, charred, twisted, preserved in cold storage. "Why keep this?" Mira asked. Serena ran her fingers along a scorched panel, because someone wanted a reminder. She turned, and that's when she saw it, tucked beneath the captain's seat, a sealed envelope. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a photo of her and her father. At age 10, her arms wrapped around his neck, his smile full, unaltered, and on the back, a line in his unmistakable handwriting, "They may take the man, but they'll never touch the love." Serena inhaled sharply. He had left it, somehow. Somewhere deep in the systems or smuggled into the physical world, she didn't care how. He had remembered, and now, so would she. That night, she sat at her desk with the passenger manifest beside her and opened a blank file. Title Flight HS-907. Full report. She began to write. We boarded as strangers. We woke as ghosts, but we landed as witnesses. This is our story. As her fingers typed, she didn't cry. Not out of numbness, but because her father had given her something even more powerful than memory, the truth. And now, it was hers to tell. She could have stayed silent. She could have walked away like so many others did. But instead, she chose truth. Serena Lowell didn't just expose a secret project. She exposed how easily society looks away when compassion is met with control, when kindness is punished, and when a black woman's voice is treated as expendable. This isn't just a story about a flight gone wrong. It's a reflection of something deeper about who gets to remember, who gets to speak, and who we become when no one is watching. And while the system tried to erase her, it couldn't erase the truth in her heart, or the love of a father whose memory outlived the machine. If this story moved you, if it made you feel, think, or even cry, then help us keep these stories alive. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful, human stories that cut through the noise. Because next time, the story might be yours. We'll see you in the next one. And until then, remember who you are, and never stop asking why.